Okay, YouTubers, this is Joe from ArtAlienTV and ArtAlien.tv, my new website here. Come and check it out. There'll be links below in the description for this page and the main page. There's loads of stuff here to check out, okay? But today, we're going to be looking at the Mars plant. And this is the page I've written up here, and I've done a lot of work on this. And what I've been doing, not only am I showing you this one here, but I'm going to show you a whole bunch of other similar things on the surface. Some of them very small, like this one, which is about an inch in size or so. And some of them absolutely gigantic, or ginormous, as I like to say, okay? But first, we're going to take a look at this, and we're going to take a look at a few articles that NASA have been putting out there, and a few things that NASA and some of their associates have been putting together about this, right? Because you will see a lot of articles in the press trying to deny that this is a plant, right? And here is such an article, just here, okay? Now, this is from technewsinsight.com. Now, this is typical of the sort of CNN-style doublespeak that we get whenever anything like this is announced or shown in the press, okay? What they tend to do is they try and bamboozle you with doublespeak and scientific jargon that most people don't understand. And I'm going to try and help you clear some of this up. We're going to take a look at this, and we're going to break it down and what the processes are that actually cause this thing to appear on the surface. Because what I think it is a fossilized plant, okay? Now, it may be coral, it may be some kind of other aquatic plant. It may not even be an aquatic plant, but I'm suspecting it probably is, because this is a lake bed, okay? I'll go into that more in a minute. I'm just going to show you a bit of this article here. Curiosity rover captured this photo of a delicate metallic flower on Mars. A delicate and, I mean, what does that even mean? This is complete gobbledygook here, right? And then it says this: the Curiosity rover took this picture of something very attractive this week on the surface of Mars. While the thing in question looks like a tiny flower or maybe some kind of organic feature, the rover team confirmed this organism is a mineral formation, having minute structures formed from minerals precipitated from water, okay? This is a tweet from Abigail Freeman, and basically they've made an article from it. Now, I did send an article myself to the press about this a few days ago. In fact, I sent it twice to about over 100 different outlets, and none of them have printed it. And they seem to be going along with this official line from NASA, okay? I've seen these kinds of features before, which are called diagenetic crystal clusters. Diagenetic means reformation or rearrangement of minerals. And these features consist of three-dimensional crystal clusters likely composed of a mixture of minerals. Right, okay. Now, this is doublespeak, right? Because actually, if you look up the term diagenesis, right, which is the process we're looking at here, I've got a clip here, right? This is from sciencedirect.com. Diagenesis, a term derived from Swedish meaning dredging, mud, slush, or silt. In geomorphology, this term is used to refer to a sediment composed of partially decomposed plant and animal remains, and fine non-organic sediment deposited in standing water, indurated to make hard or harden. So it's a form of concretion or mineralization or crystallization on a dead plant, okay? It clearly says here, right? Now, if you were to read all these articles, now there's dozens of these articles out there already. This thing's been going viral for days now. This is basically the statement they're putting out. They're trying to make out to us that this is just crystallization, but basically this type of diagenetic crystallization is a form of fossilization or mineralization that happens in salty, sulfurous sediments like you get in the bottom of a salt lake, which is what we have in scale crater where this is, okay? Now, here's a coin here for scale. Look, you can see how small this thing is. It's not very big at all. But it doesn't matter. And I've got a 3D rendition of it here to show you, which is really cool, okay? This will spin round. And you can see that this is not just a rock, okay? It's a complex structure and is a plant. And that's what it is. I don't know exactly what type of plant it is. It may be coral, it may be some other kind of aquatic species or something. Probably an aquatic plant of some sort, I would say, most likely. In fact, I'm 100% sure this is a fossilized plant. It's just a question of which type of exact plant we're talking about here. That's the only question I have. So, I'll put links to all these things in the description below, as usual, right? Here's that model thing here. I'll link to this as well. This is on the Sketchfab, and you can actually spin around yourself and have a look at it, right? Okay, so this is a 3D model, because there was loads of images taken of this thing, and they've comprised this of all the different images from different angles and stuff, okay, over a few days, and then put them together into a 3D model, which is really cool, okay? Really nice, okay? So there we have it. Now let me read you what I've got here, and here it is. Mars coral plant found, mineralized plant. Latest Mars images show a coral plant. Check it out. It is in good close-up detail, a coral plant skeleton or fossilized mineralized plant. NASA are calling these diagenetic crystal clusters. So they just admitted this is mineralized genetic material while telling the public that this is just a crystalline structure. Talk about doublespeak, okay? You have to decode their messages and read between the lines as usual. There's a bit of a typo there. I'll correct that in a minute. And here's that clip I just showed you. Diagenesis, okay? This is what I just showed you on that clip from sciencedirect.com, a term derived from Swedish mud and silt, yeah, referring to sediment composed of partially decomposed plant and animal remains, okay? That's the crucial bit there, okay? Partially decomposed plant and animal remains and fine non-organic sediment deposited in standing water, okay? This is exactly the same process that I have mentioned before. It's very similar to the salt mummies we see in places like Lake Natron in Africa that I've shown before. I have shown many mummified creatures and remains on the surface in this area, not just plants, little plants, but larger things like there's petrified wood. There are mineralized skulls and remains of creatures in this lake bed. Now, when the lake water dried out, a lot of these animals died in the very rich sedimentary layers of mud, okay, that was on the surface. The mud and the sediments, which is very rich in minerals. These minerals will then crystallize on the surface of these creatures and preserve them and harden into a form of concretion, which is exactly the same process that has happened to this particular plant, okay? I could show you plenty of examples of that, but I'm not going to go through them now, okay? I will put a couple of clips of some of the animals I've found that have been preserved in this sulfur-rich sediment, okay? Sulfate-rich sediment, right? There's that clip from the article I just showed you. There's a link to it there. There's that clip I just showed you from the other page, Diagenesis. The key part, as I said, is decomposed plant and animal remains, okay? This is crucial. What they are trying to tell you is that this is an actual plant fossil. Because they're not allowed to tell you directly, they're using kind of CNN-style doublespeak to try and bamboozle you with information and confuse you. But in fact, what they're really doing is telling us that there was life on Mars. That's exactly what they're doing here. This is it, okay? This is exactly how I would have expected this to come. They never say things directly, they say things indirectly and are usually quite strategically vague in the way they explain or give out information like this. They've done it before with water and other things as well. They never tell you directly in simple English terms. They always use doublespeak and technical jargon. But in this case, it didn't take me long to figure out what they were talking about, and you do not have to be a geneticist or biologist or botanist to work out what they're saying. All you've got to do is look it up, okay, on sciencedirect.com. There it is. And there are many other examples that I have of plants. There's one here, living plant found on Mars, asparagus cacti. Now, this is a living plant, right? This isn't fossilized, as far as I know, because what we have, and it's not very clear here because the text is covering it up. I've got a clip of it here. You can see this plant here, right? If you use the magnifier, you can see there's the asparagus cacti, as I've called it. And below it here are the roots. And below the roots, if you look on this image, there's the roots there, is a patch of water or wet sand. There's the roots there. The plant comes up, the roots go through this sand here, and the plant comes up above, just there. Okay? There's the plant, and there's the roots. And you can see this wet patch here. What this is basically frost has formed on these rocks because they're quite flat and sloping. When the frost melted, it dripped down onto the sand here, and the plant is feeding from that moisture in the sand. Okay, so we have water, roots, and a plant. Okay, you can actually see the plant better in this image here. There's a better close-up of it here. Okay, so you need to watch these. Follow the links below. It may just look like a shard of nothingness, but actually it's very similar to some of the cacti we have on Earth. This is very small, only a couple of 2 or 3 inches high. It's not very big. We also have stuff like this, and in this area we have seasonal vegetation. These plants or bushes on Mars are in the Augustus labyrinthus region. The possible bushes appear in the summer and are gone in the winter. Are they growing in between artificial structures that resemble a massive salt farm? Possibly. Even if these are natural, the structures may be collecting water enough to support plants that are congregating in the lower parts. There is absolutely no reason why these should not be evidence of organic life on the surface of Mars, especially when it's in the south polar melt zone. Okay, so these are in the south actually, but there are similar clusters of what they're like bushes or moss or whatever it is on the surface in the northern melt zone as well. You get them in both polar regions, not in the very far north of Mars or very far south of Mars, but in the areas where the ice is melting, okay, in the warmer parts. These are all over the place, and there are millions of them, and it's absolutely mind-boggling. Okay, so check those out. Check out the links here. Okay, follow the links. Then there's this giant vine plants on Mars. This is astonishing. Okay, these are huge branches and roots and what look like vines growing on the surface. Okay, and some of them go down right into the ground, and many of them have crawling plants and parasitic plants growing over them like this. Okay, absolutely insane. Now, you've really got to watch this. I'm not going to go into this full now, but if you look at this with a magnifier, you can actually see this branch here. We've got other branches going over it. Okay, roots and branches and parasitic plants growing on each other. Very complex stuff going on here. And to give you an idea of scale, this branch here is about 15 foot wide, okay, just that bit there, right? This is about 20 foot in width. So this is huge. And there's loads of this stuff here. So you can check that out by following these pans here. Let's have a quick look at that actually, because this is quite astonishing. And you can see them here. Here we are. There it is, right? You've got so-called dunes here, right? Which are not dunes at all. These so-called millipede dunes contain plant material, or there are plants growing inside them. And they have legs and arms coming out, which then go over and under some of these branches here. And There's no scale on this one, but there are other versions of this with a scale on. This is huge, right? Absolutely huge. These are hundreds of meters long, some of these, okay? And they may just look like dunes, but they're not. Some of them are actual living organisms, a kind of primitive creature or plant, okay, that crawl along the surface, okay? That's what some of them are. Most of them aren't, but some of them are. And this is a good example of it. There's also a town or city here as well, which you can check out. Absolutely insane. At certain times of day, there is moisture in the sand, which some of these plants can drink. And it's there long enough for them to survive, okay? And I also think some of these plants, some of these very large plants, are sending runners right down into below the permafrost, where there is water, liquid water. This one here is called Mars, the priestess and the plant. There's a carving of a priestess, well, I call it a priestess, I don't know if it is, a clear carving of a face here. But next to it, in the sand, is this thing, a fossilized plant, okay? That's what this is. I've got a negative of it there. There's the raw clip, there's the enhanced clip. You can see the branches there, okay? I'll show you with the magnifier. There's the branches. It's a plant. There's the plant there, okay? You can see the branches here. Quite clear. So, and there's loads of crazy stuff in this gigapan if you check this out. Loads and loads of fragments, architectural fragments, fossils, preserved and mineralized skulls and remains, and also things like statues and other architectural fragments all over it, okay? This one is absolutely littered with it. So I recommend that. Then there are the giant gourds that I found about a year ago, a couple of years ago actually. And these are absolutely insane. It's almost impossible for me to even explain how big these are. And the only way I can explain it really is to show you this clip here. There's also these spiders, which I think are related to these, which may be plants living just under the surface, giant plants as well. This is absolutely insane. These are huge as well, right? And these are absolutely enormous, okay? These are hundreds of meters across, these here. Are these giant red vegetables, pumpkin-shaped gourds, fruit or fungi on Mars? They have veins on them with roots going into the ground. Some even have vine roots joining them in lines. These are absolutely huge, from about 70 to over 200 meters in size. The largest three on the cover image are 130 meters each in size. These are absolutely enormous, okay? There's links to all the gigapans here, and they're a beautiful colour, a lot of them as well. Some are in black and white, but they're absolutely astonishing. Here's a clip here of what they look like in black and white. This is also a very good image. There's good detail in here. You can download this image if you wish. If I show you with the magnifier, you can actually see where these giant gourd-like things are actually joined up, right, along the ground here with vines going between them here, right? You can see that quite clearly. And these are enormous. These are absolutely huge. You've got a scale here. That's 100 meters, that measurement there. Most of these are bigger than 100 meters. Some are 200, like this one, or 3. That's 200 or 300 meters across there. This is a double one. And what I think they do is when they self-replicate, or when they breed, or whatever they're doing, they're replicating anyway, and then they form a sort of tube-like vine, which then gives birth to other gourds here. Now, what this may be is a male and a female here, right? And this tube that comes off is like a birthing tube or vine, and then they start off quite small, and then they gradually get fatter and fatter, a bit like runner beans, where you got peas in a pod. So it's like a long pod, right? It goes along the ground, and as they grow, the pod then dies away, leaving these rows of giant gourds or beans or whatever they are. They could be fungi. There's some type of plant. They are absolutely enormous. In fact, they're so large, you could hollow them out and live inside them. And if they contain water, which they probably do, you could probably survive off them for years and years. They are absolutely enormous, okay? And I really recommend you watch this because this is absolutely mind-blowing. And also these others here, this one, the spiders. The Christmas feast is a bit of a laugh, this one. This is about me, what I would eat if I was on Mars on Christmas Day, okay? And I've got all these different plants and animal remains and deciding which things I'm going to eat and which would taste the best, okay? Which is a bit of a laugh, but actually it's quite a serious experiment in what you could do and how you could survive on the surface by utilising these different things like plants and remains or possible living creatures that could be eaten, okay? So this is a serious experiment going on here. And this is quite an extensive one as well. Mars plants cause methane. And I really do think these are largely responsible for the methane spikes on Mars, which have been going on for years. And NASA still will not admit that these are caused by probably dying plant material when these seasonal plants die off every year, okay? And there are millions of these. Now often these will show up as just domes, okay? Or dunes, and often they look a bit like these, the sort of tea dunes we have down here. Now, I'm not saying all these are plants. Some of them may be, but a lot of them are just dunes. But I do think a lot of these dunes form on actual plants that are on the ground. And the reason why we have these black marks on them is caused by the plants rotting away underneath, okay, or causing outgassing of hydrocarbon or hydromethane, okay, which is basically swamp gas, okay. So we got swamp gas on Mars. That's what it is. And this is likely related, and maybe another type of these giant gourds that we have here. I don't know. But these are the most convincing because they really do look like plants, okay? And they've even got leaves on them. If you look at them here with the magnifier, you can see these leaves coming out and vines coming off. And this kind of birthing tube or pod, you tend to, if you look at them in close detail, occasionally you'll see two together like this, and often the two together will have this kind of birthing pod coming out with these babies emerging from the pod, okay? There's loads of examples of this, okay? You can measure them on here. Over 100 meters wide, a lot of them, okay? And there's hundreds and thousands of them. And in some areas you can see them in rows. These are what they look like when they've just hatched, okay? They're more sort of ovoid or sort of slightly different shape. These ones have just hatched here, right? So these are juveniles. This is what they look like when the pod they come out of has rotted away, okay? They come out in long lines. And as they get bigger, some of them die off, right? And then some of them turn into much larger, huge, massive adults like this. And you can see that they're covered in little spines or spikes or hairs right around here, okay? Look around the edge here. See these? These are spines. They're covered in little spines and hairs. So they may be a type of cacti, they may be a type of gourd, they may be a type of other plant. We don't know, but these are absolutely insane. And here's two that are joined together. Now, these were in a long line. Well, they are in a long line. And these have just recently hatched. These are juveniles here, okay? And that one there is about to split into two, right? It's still got part of the pod over the top of it, okay? You can see them joined here. These are juveniles. And as they get bigger, they split away from each other, and half of them, or a number of them, die off because there's not enough moisture in the ground. They can only support so many. That's why they're evenly spaced, because they use up probably quite a lot of water resources in the ground, so they can't live too close together, because otherwise they would just use up all the water. So this is why they end up evenly spaced like this, perfectly evenly spaced, because the smaller ones have died off in between, okay? That's what I think. Like here. So what would happen here, for instance, this one would probably die. Well, this one would. And then these two would become fully grown. And then you end up with this kind of spacing. So that explains the spacing on the ground. And you can see another one here, birthing another one here, see? Just here. With a vine going between it, okay? And this vine here goes into the ground. You can see it going into the ground there. These are absolutely astonishing. Every time I look at them, I'm amazed. They're so enormous, some of these. These aren't the biggest as well. There's loads more. Okay, so check out all these links. You can check out all the links to the giant gourds. I've called these Joe fruit, okay? I'm not saying they are fruit. That's what I've called them, just because they look a bit like fruit, okay? I actually think these are either gourds or cacti or something very similar. I don't know exactly. They're so enormous. They're very different from anything we've got on Earth. And there are millions of them in some areas. This is only a small number we're looking at here. Okay, they're absolutely incredible. So check those out. And also down here we've got this video here. Now this is from years ago. Now I worked out years and years ago that there must be higher air pressure on Mars for this water to still be standing in these lake areas on the surface. Now this is I think a thermal lake. In other words, there's hot water coming up from the ground, which is why it's not frozen. Okay. And I also go into some detail in this video about how some of the rocks move around on the surface, because like in parts of Earth where we have flat lake beds, you often see huge rocks that move around, and you can see them in these images, and they've got kind of long trails behind them where they've moved along the mud. Okay, now the only way this can happen, and this has been worked out on Earth, is that you'll get rain on the surface, which then freezes, and you have basically ice on the ground, but with water underneath it. And you get these you get this pack ice on the surface, and what it does, the wind blows the pack ice, and any large rock sticking up gets pushed along, and it slides along the mud. So the ice actually pushes the rocks along, leaving a trail behind the rock, okay? That's how it works. It's not done by wind. The wind pushes the ice, which then pushes the rocks, okay? And there's other things like this, which may be a plant, may not be. This may be a fulgurite, as some people have said. But that's really cool. Very strange stuff going on here. And this is one of my favourites from years and years ago, from 2014, okay? This is what I think is a cacti plant, just here. And I've just taken this new clip of it. This is completely raw clip, not enhanced in any way, okay? Not even brightened or anything. And it has 5 limbs with what look like leaves on it as well, and a kind of thick trunk. Very, very strange. Some people said it looked a bit like a crab or something on a rock. I don't think it is. I think it's a plant. I think it's some kind of desert plant, like a small cacti. It's less than a foot tall. It's probably about 10 inches or 8 inches, something like that, maybe smaller. You can see it here. I've got an enhanced version here. I've got the raw version here, and I've got an enhanced black and white version of the area. And when you zoom in, it's just there. Okay, there it is. It's not very big. Like I said, somewhere between 3 and 10 inches, I don't know. No scale for this at all, so it's very hard to work out, but I would say it's less than 10 inches, probably more like 7 or something, or 6. Who knows? But you can actually see, if you use the magnifier, you can actually see these limbs or leaves here, parts sticking out. It helps if you go back a bit. I've got my magnifier set too high, so let's go back. There it is. There we are. Limbs sticking out, which look like leaves. And it does go kind of green. When you enhance the contrast on it, it goes green. So I think that's a plant. There's also loads of other weird stuff in this one. There's a thing here that's a bit like a spear, okay? And there's a link to the video I did about that. I think that's a thing called a glaive. Now, I found this so long ago. 2014, that's a long time ago, right? That's 8 years ago. So check that out. That's a really cool one. There's loads of other things here. I'm not going to go through them all now. You can check these articles out, follow the links, look at the gigaplans, check out the original images. There's links to all this stuff here. Check out the videos, okay? Bear in mind, some of these videos are really old, I've done remakes of some of them, like this one here. This is a remake here, this one, of the original video, and there's a lot better quality, okay? I won't go through any more because this has been long enough already. Check out the giant veg, or the Joe fruit, check out the spiders. Check out this fossil here. Check out the giant vine plants here, which are absolutely huge. Near to zero crater, those are. So it's not just Gale crater we're looking at here. We got them in this area here, Angustus labyrinthus, which is the southern hemisphere in the melt zone. Okay. Then we have the asparagus cacti that I named a couple of years ago. Okay, I sent this to the press. They would not print it. In fact, I've sent nearly all of these to the press over and over again, and they will not print them. And when they say that these are crystalline structures, yes, they are, but they're not just simple crystals that are formed on nothing. They are formed on a dead plant. Okay, that's what it is. The only question is, what type of plant? Right? Thanks for watching. I'll see you soon.